Welcome back, audience. How you doing? As you can see, I'm surrounded by smoke, but it's a nice smelling one. Nothing is on fire. Well, except the incense is on fire. Damn, looks so good. Anyway, what was I saying? Right, I want to talk about willpower in this video because I think it's quite overlooked um, in the subject of real spirit and real spirituality. I call it alchemy and devotion. I mean, yeah, you know, there's many names for it again, but there's only one consciousness, and it's only structures of consciousness. It's always the same, never changing, and that's what I'm talking about the structures of consciousness and how to use them. And one of the faculties that we can use, sometimes I call it courage and surrender. That's what is necessary for you to basically overcome, live through any kind of feeling based challenge, emotional challenge, in the right way. It's not about creating another policy. It's not about, like, well, that person made me feel like this, so now I'm going to figure out how to never feel like this again. None of that game. This is actual, the art of living. For realsies, no more nonsense. And as always, whatever people are going to be, teaching you or showing you about this, it will always be about the same thing. Sometimes people, I have a general unease, like, existential angst, and they're looking for the ways out. And sometimes it puts them in a mode of seeking, and they call them seekers, which is really sad, because it's not about the seeking, it's about the digging. It's about that very thing that you call angst, and you sort of like looking for the solution, right? But the solution is that it's all it's doing, it's asking for your attention. This is why it feels a little off. It's asking for your attention. But that attention requires a certain degree of courage. And it also doesn't only just want your attention or your courage, it also wants the surrender or the awareness. And any kind of misalignment within your body can be dealt with like that. Yesterday I had my personal sort of challenge of lust, which inspired me to make this video, because then I realized what made me to overcome that. Because I was put in the exact same situation as I always when I was losing to it. But this time I was like, okay, I'm gonna handle it. And what made the difference was the willpower, obviously, just good old willpower that allowed me to regain my attention over that sensation, that drive that was making me, tempting me to do stuff. That wasn't from the heart. That was just like to take my energy. Right? And I was kind of on the verge of losing this, but then I realized that what will make the difference is my willpower. Willpower, courage, attention. These are all words to indicate the capacity to use your energy to sort of like focus on whatever needs to be focused on. Okay? That's pretty much my definition of willpower. Because the energy may be trying to move sort of like against you, but you coalesce all the energy that you got and place it against it. You see, it's a type of resistance training almost, right? In the gym, exactly the same thing. Now it's a physical, of course, but you do need willpower even to do the reps, because when it gets hard, how are you going to keep on doing it unless you have a specific focused energy on that sensation that is telling you no, or enough, or whatever. But through your will, you can go through the motions even though it's hard, or we call this, it's difficult, it's hard. Okay, so so that's just another illustration of the use of willpower, right? But in this particular case, I'm talking about the use of the same willpower to that existential angst, if you will. And and it's always about the use of willpower and the use of surrender. Because if it's only willpower, it's going to get to the point where you won't be able to handle it. You've got to add some degree of surrender to be able to withstand that intensity. Okay? This is why when you're like all willpower, no surrender, it doesn't work. Like, you don't break through. You can't take it, because um you're not, you're just all fire and no water, but you gotta mix them up, and you know exactly how much willpower to use and how much surrender in this. And it is a type of tuning and learning and finding that in betweenness. Okay, it's not just surrender, even though you discovering that point of surrender within yourself, I suppose I should say circle, can can make you obviously realize, like, oh my god, like, I was grabbing hold onto anything, and I did not want to just fall through into this stillness, and I was scared of just being complete quiet and silence. There's nothing going on. It's delicious to be there, right? But it takes a certain degree of surrender to accommodate yourself in this state. And you see, in the silence, in this, there's no thoughts, there's no um, any kind of scripts. It's stillness and silence. It's this. Now, I have to, the state of that stillness, that silence, it is not, you don't seek it. You don't, because if you're going to seek it, it's going to be another pacification and sort of simulation of that real stillness and silence. The only way you access the real stillness and silence is through the surrender. Your mind may try to hold on onto anything, something, but if you don't let it to hold on and let it fall into that nothingness, that stillness, and so that is an act of surrender. And then there's the state of stillness, of peace, the real peace, the background of everything. Holy Spirit, Virgin Mary. Sometimes people may refer to it as that. Why is it virgin? It's because it's always pure. There is no information there. There's no anything there. It's a background of everything, right? And so, of course, any kind of negative thoughts or problems or angst just dissolve there and just gone. And so that's how powerful it is. Okay. And the other side of it, that would be ultimate yin. Ultimate yin is just complete peace. But the other side of it, the yang, that would be complete bliss. And then there's blissful peace and peaceful bliss. And it sort of ranges in from one or the other. That's pretty much your essence. Is That's how the sense, well, the feelings of life is whenever you are living life through courage and surrender. Your life becomes about that. Okay. Oh my God. There's this tuku bird or whatever you call it. I don't know how you call it, but lately there's been so many animals coming to this place. I hope it didn't just stall my workers' lunch because it seems like eating something delicious. Anyway, sorry about this distraction. Okay, what was I talking about? Right, the young part of it. And so that can only be earned through courage. You see, um, and sometimes this is what people call love light, right? Another way. There's just so many words for it, but the easiest thing is just to perhaps use like a symbol. The symbol can be universal, and language can be. There's so many languages can refer to that one little symbol. Okay, but right, and every time your life brings you a challenge, like for example, about any kind of challenge, that angst, it's always going to be a quite specific one. I am right now again. These theories are just like a work in progress, and I'm just discovering these things within myself and figure it out because it seems that there's so much like there's no good real map of consciousness. Everything is just all over the place, and people have pieces of information and they talk about it, but they don't know the whole thing, and it's not a holistic map. That I have not found it. The map that could really show everything as is and how it works. There's just pieces of that, and maybe for the good reason. But as I was um, experiencing this and talking about this, I've noticed that there are four types of challenges. It's to do with that existential angst that I was talking about, or that has been caused by some catalyst or just the passage of time. It happens to pain, fire, pressure, earth, uh, water. I call it maybe disgust or nausea. And then you have um, air confusion. It's it's always going to be one of those. Sometimes they're all in one, and that is a big challenge. And sometimes it becomes like at first it may be a very specific and precise experience of that existential pain. Then it's very precise and specific experience of the existential pressure, and then that poison, and then there's confusion, right? And it's just like that. But then it seems to be spiraling and going faster, and then it's go to the point where it's just almost indistinguishable. That is just like a point of complete breakthrough when you mix them all into one, and your alchemy gem is completed. And it seemed that it corresponds to um, the different colors or flavors or frequencies, if you will, uh, red, orange, like each one of them has that spiraling going on, and each one of them has four of these elemental challenges. So, and then there's also the polarity of it, right? For example, um, the feminine side of it and the masculine side of it. For example, from pain, the feminine side of it would be fear, the masculine side of it would be anger, right? So there's that also, the polarity. So then what you have is uh, 7 types of frequencies, 4 types of elements, and 2 polarities. And that results in 56 types of challenges that needs to be alchemized. The separations, if you want, right? And so there are 56 types of distortions, therefore the 56 types of problems or parts of ego, that pieces of the puzzle, and each of them produces a specific pattern of the behavior. And so that's the ego is like that. It's going to be one of those 56, and it's going to be pattern of the behavior. And because there's only one ego, um oh my god, I just said, all right, there's only one ego, right? And some people may be active in one part or the other part or more parts, whatever, right? But there's only one. So so it's all so predictable. And people, like I said, people who are actually working with people, no, not psychologists, because everything goes you know above their head, or through one ear and leap to another, because they're functioning at the level of the mind. They don't see anything beyond, which they can describe the pattern really well, but they can't do fuck all about it. And but anyway, it's not about the description of the pattern, by the way, because if you don't do alchemy or devotion, which is exactly a dissolution of that pattern and the real permanent change of that pattern, then you can get stuck in it and analyze it, and to counterbalance one belief, you create another one. Because there's this ego, there's a real, these distortions that you have, that it's not your fault. You came with these things. These are your challenges. Nobody caused them. That's why the thing, that nobody caused them. Nobody outside of you caused them. They were already there. They just revealed them. You were born with these things, because that's the level of your development as a soul being. You come with these distortions. That's your game, and that distortion is going to perpetuate the same pattern and the cycle until it is being highlighted. And it's been highlighted when you go to the point of feeling the feeling of it, because it's the feeling. And somebody makes you feel pain. Nobody made you feel pain, but they just highlighted that there is pain inside you. So this is why, like, if somebody in your life is a catalyst, they doing you a favor, catalyzing you for the alchemical and devotional purposes to make that permanent change. So this is why they're doing you a favor, kind of thing, even though it may seem like they're not. Now, of course, if you play the game of life right, then it's obviously a favor. It's a huge, massive favor that they're doing. Okay. And another side of it, there's resonance, right? So then you can resonate with some people, which feels amazing, and some people, it can catalyze you, which upon alchemy and devotion, that amazingness grows. So then when you're resonating, the resonance is even stronger. So it's about enjoying the resonance and then alchemizing all the parts of you that's been catalytically, highlighted. If you see life like that, then there's pretty much um I was gonna say no enemies. Okay. And it's just like a continuous tuning, it seems, at that level. But anyway, this video is about the willpower and how important it is to use the willpower, um, because nobody talks about willpower. At least I didn't see. Everybody's talking about surrender what is, just let it be. I said, okay, well, what about your desires? What about your dream? What about what you came here to do? You see? And the surrender is a big part of it, but it's just a half of the puzzle, half of it. And I also noticed the pattern that whenever you as a man overcome uh, the challenge that requires your courage and attention, okay, it seems, I just observed that there's must be a woman somewhere who overcame her challenge of surrender. Okay, it's it seems to be working like that. This is why Neville Goddard is talking about that there's no blamable party in your reality, meaning n- nobody's fault of what you're experiencing. Nobody did anything to you. Um, eh, they don't really have sort of like their own authority. Everybody in your life, they don't really have their own authority. They just appear to have. Because why? It's because it's a reflection of your inner world. So they're all appearing to you exactly how you are wired inside of yourself. So, you know, so that's why if you can't blame anyone, then the responsibility is all yours. And that is kind of freeing, you know? And that includes man and woman, both. It's basically if you want to have, for example, good relationships in your life and whatever you want, right? Then you must um, sort of create that. You can't say it's someone else's fault, it's your partner's fault or whatever, because whatever your partner did, it's just you. So that's why it kind of creates this sort of almost paradox that whatever happens in your world is your responsibility. Before I was thinking like, oh yeah, right, I'm doing all these things, but it doesn't appear that they are doing these things, right? It like so. I was basically saying, well, I'm doing it, but they're not doing it. But that's just not how it works. If I'm doing it, then they are doing it, and if they're not doing it, then I must have not done something that is required for me to do. You see? So there's just like a brutal honesty with this reality, um, how this reality works. Just really living that law, not through the knowledge, but through your essence, to just being it. And the only way you be that is, again, whatever challenge that you have in life. It could be minor, It's always the only way you rectify that is through alchemy and devotion first, then uh, magic and allowance, or you know what, fantasia is probably a better word because it really is. Magic is based on willpower, fantasia is based on deception, and then might and care, as I call it, which is a right action and right uh, relaxation or care, soothing, that side of it, um, care. And those are three joysticks of life, and that's how you play it. And if you play it right, then there's nobody to blame because to blame. Okay, there's not a lot complexity here, but the idea that you're just gonna keep on surrender and flow through life, well, it's not right. Without courage, it's not gonna happen either. Um, without willpower. Everything else is a distraction. Everything is about those two energies that I call, light and love, or power and and peace. Can just these words, that stillness, that void, the background of everything, and the primordial light. Everything is done because of this, those infinite energies. And you acquire them only through surrender and through courage, as I mentioned before. And then they become just natural part of your being. And then you can say you have power, um, because those gems been already alchemized. And what is power? Power is the capacity to create whatever you want to create in your experience. That's power. And whatever you want to create is going to be, because you have that real power, it's going to be the way your soul is structured. And so that's determines desires. And your soul desires must be fulfilled, and all the ego tantrums must be dissolved. And that's how to play the game of life. You see? What else I can say about this? Only that the use of willpower is quite overlooked. And I only saw Krishnamurti talking about this, and talking about gathering all your energy for one specific purpose, to face that thing that you may call sorrow. He called sorrow. And he said you should hold the sorrow as a jewel. And the only way you can do this is if you can muster up all the willpower to be able to keep that attention there. And how are you going to muster up all the willpower? Only when you're not leaking it on the things that are not important. And it seems to me it's like this. It's like that Excalibur metaphor, right? The hero is able to pull out that Excalibur sword. That's when he's going to be able to slay that demon. And that is pretty much the game. It's like, okay, are you going to be able to eliminate all the distractions where your energy is leaking and place it exactly where it needs to be, to have sufficient energy to break through? I call that process. You get to gather sufficient energy to break through. Um, and I only saw Krishnamurti talking about this. Everybody else is saying, and it's like a soft talking monkeys, and they're not talking about the necessity of spiritual fighting that requires all your willpower to break through. Right? And yeah, surrender is just a half of the puzzle. It is necessary, but when you combine it with the courage, that's when you get that's when you get your cookie, and hopefully some milk too. Because it's delicious. What else can I say about this? I don't think there's nothing else I can say about this. Everything has been said. Don't like be shy, especially if you're a man, to use your willpower. But again, I said the willpower can be double-edged sword, because you can misuse your willpower if you're not using your willpower first to break through that angst inside of you, and you're using your willpower to somehow fix that, um, which is usually an attempt in domination, seeking for status, for recognition, and all these like that type of drive. This is all bullshit. You are wasting your willpower and your life, because in the end, after it's all done, you're still going to have the same angst that you had at the beginning, because you were just doing all these external things to fix that feeling, and then momentarily you were able to fix it. But it's all dark game, you see. That's a dark way. And now I'm seeing that there's only two challenges. There's some sort of uh, the challenge of domination. There's a masculine side of the demon, if you will, and the challenge of temptation, a feminine side of the demon, because it always is trying to tempt you to pacify that feeling and give away your energy for that. This is why you can see externally, you can see like uh, maybe like a man paying for sex, right? That's like he's giving away his energy to pacify his sorrow, uh, dark path. And the other side, the dominant side would be um, just attempting to, because people who are seeking dominance, they also uh, get that reward of not experiencing pain. It's a cow. You see, like trying to dominate is a coward cowardness act, cowardly act. Trying to dominate is cowardly act is because they don't face that pain inside of them. They're looking to dominate somebody else, just to basically uh, um, just put that pain on somebody else. Okay, and the same thing with pressure. Because you may feel pressure to be tempted, and pain to dominate. Okay, and there's nothing people they can do when they're in that type of cycle. They're always going to try to dominate, whether they like it or not, because they don't want to face the pain, and they to or tempt, right? To tempt or dominate. And these energies, right? Like you can see those energies. Okay, that okay. What we're doing here. And your goal is obviously not to play that domination game, but not to be dominated. And if there is any kind of pain that you gotta face, You don't dump that pain onto somebody else by dominating somebody else. You alchemize it, and that pain, it will turn into bliss, and that will be real power. And then you will have that power always and forever. It's a permanent shift. Do you see the value in it? It's enormous, enormous investment of your energy. And that's the layer that you really want to settle in well, on that seed level, on the feelings level. Everything else is kind of secondary and tertiary. The secondary is magic, and the tertiary is might. Um, okay, but at least this is the way you get out of these cycles, by not being one of those people and resisting to these types of people who carry that ego energy. This way, you you grow as a soul. Nobody can, when nobody can dominate you and nobody can tempt you, nobody can, you know, threaten you with everything and try to fearmonger you, when nobody can tempt you because what they're offering to you is no longer uh, what they're offering to you has no value to you anymore. Why doesn't have any value? Because that little jolt of pleasure that you've been receiving, or maybe even it's not little, maybe if it's in the, you know, a lot of it, whatever, but it was just a kind of a temporary fix and it's gone. After the alchemizing that distortion, you already have it with you. Okay, so when you feel that good, what, they can't offer you anything, right? And so therefore they can't offer you anything in that sense, and so you don't resonate, and you say obviously no. But you say basically your boundaries is like that. I'm for resonating with somebody, um, but I'm not engaging in this type of, you know, unequal energy exchange. You see, it's not the same as just saying like avoidance, right? The avoidance is like, well, I'm not gonna face it. I'm not gonna face the temptation. No, it means that it has a hold of you. You should be able to live surrounded by all these temptations, and just use for the sake of alchemy, and not succumb to any of these. You see, and in fact, that's what catalyzes you. So it's a great catalyst. That attempt of domination and temptation, it's a great catalyst, and that's why you use it for the catalyst. This is why then you have no energy. Excuse me, you have no um, enemies, because some people for you are going to be catalyzing something, you know, some process that is necessary. Thank you very much. And some with some people are going to be resonating. Thank you very much. It's all good. This is why you can totally still hang out with the people who are, you know, what you call more dark, you know, and can totally hang out with crooks and whores for the reason of catalyzing and alchemizing it. And you can also hang out to resonate with somebody else. You see that you don't really avoid any of this. You always have a specific type of relationship with all this. You can have a healthy relationship with a very unhealthy person from your perspective, right? They're living in the dark, but with you, everything is going to be alchemized, and they may even have a little bit kind of a brief moment of relief from all of that dark shit. You see? So that was awesome. I really think that there is an art and science to life itself, not about some specific subject, but the life itself, the consciousness itself. There is a way that you can learn, and not, it's not just like getting the map is like, oh, that's a nice map, and you continue doing the same old fucking shit. No, you get that map and say like, oh, okay. So right now, in this moment, is there anything off with? Is there anything missing here? Like in this moment, can I say that this moment is feels absolutely perfect as is? If not, then you can focus somewhere. You can always find some sort of offness. You place your attention there and say, hello, offness. And then you add a little bit of background of it. And that offness starts unwinding and having a flavor of deliciousness. Okay? And then you may get into this point where, oh, fuck, I feel that uh, flavor of deliciousness happening. Okay, nice. So now, from this state, you're not going to take a decision to fix anything because everything's amazing as is. So then, decision does not come from motivation anymore, and it comes from inspiration. But inspiration has its own way, and inspiration may look like that. Okay, everything's all right, and you're enjoying, you're drinking some tea or whatever. And then there's this some excitement, or the moment of passion comes along and says, oh, it would be really nice, um, go to the gym or whatever. That would be amazing. Then I go to the gym. I'd be like, oh, it would be really cool if we do this. Then you do that. It's it it is almost like, I mean, if you can phrase it like that, it's telling you what to do. It's inspiring you to do these things. And then you can say, well, who decided that? Who decided that, like, I'm just going to have like the impulse to do something that feels, an idea of doing it feels really good, really exciting? Where did that coming from? Where did that came from? It just bubbled up out of infinite because you were connected with the infinite through your tuning to it. You don't have to close your eyes, you don't have to nothing. At any point in time, you can always become aware of it. And then you can always become aware and attentive of the most enjoyable point in your awareness. Because after you faced all of that offness, the enjoyableness is going to be arising, and then you can keep on being attentive and aware of that and let that move and do its thing, and you play with it. And so then now your attention, you're captivated by that feeling of feeling good. It may take lots of flavors. Right now I feel like a electrical type of sweetness. If I would describe, this is why it's so difficult to describe them, because words cannot, how can words describe music, right? Like, if somebody would say describe it to me in words. How does the music sound? I mean, do you see what I'm trying to say? Like, you can do the best, and you're probably going to be creating some sort of poetry. Poetry is an expression of that awesomeness, the aliveness, those feelings into the form of language. Music is, of course, in the form of sounds and music. Stories is in the form of stories. Everything can be a translation of that thing that is already there. This is why I sometimes try to put a symbol on it, and I kind of recognize it, but it's never always exactly the same. But I can kind of recognize now. I can recognize those uh, states, those feelings that's happening, and when you captivate it with that feeling, your attention is always on the right thing. Then it's always on the infinite, and it's not being moved away by anything outside of you. You're digging it because you're enjoying it. That's what your attention is always have to be. Your attention is always has to be on the awareness, so to speak. Um, and it doesn't, you don't look weird. You don't look like you're straining yourself or whatever. You can do normal things. Like I said, you can drink tea and still be attentive of the best feeling sensation in your body or energy field, if you will. Okay. And once you get a habit of that, then your attention is always going to be sort of like, glued to that awesome feeling. And if there's any kind of separation comes online that is not kind of off, you really put your attention there and you work on that. So your eye, your soul eye, is always facing the right direction, and the energy is going to be flowing in the right direction, because it is what we're talking about. I can explain to you what we're talking about. Imagine the eyeball, and if the eyeball is looking, this way, everything's all right. And that's one way of saying it. Your attention is with your awareness. When you flip around and you start looking the other way, everything's wrong. Everything is bad. Good, unifying, infinite based, both temporal, duality based, conflict based. Like that. It's where your eyes is looking. That's what you're creating. It's that flippening like that. I'm certain of it. That there's nothing else. You see how simple it is. It's basically, if you look this way, all bad. Look that way. Look this way, all good. Look that way, all bad. Everything else is distraction. Okay? And when your thoughts start rising and like they kind of negative, it's because you're looking at the wrong way in your soul. Your attention must be. And as you can see, it's nothing to do with knowledge. It's to do with the direction of your soul's attention. The divisive one, the conflict based, and harmony based. Um, and I also have to say that when somebody is facing that way, right? This is why right now, this is how I see the people. And then I don't see them like frozen in this, because I know that like I could also be facing the other way, and I was facing the other way until I start facing more, this way, and that became more and more of my uh, the habit in my life, so can be with other people. Sometimes when people like take psychedelics, the eye flips, and now they can see everything the way it is. Sometimes, take LSD, they feel like this love inside of them. Oh my God, this is amazing. But that's how it really is naturally if you keep on living life in that direction, right? So, and it appears that it is possible to learn how to use that consciousness, but the person must be already super super interested in like ending those cycles, even the cycle of seeking. They must be super super interested. They might be either exhausted all the other possible options, or um, they just have natural curiosity, natural drive to understand how to play the game of life. Because I'm also going to say something about the heaven and hell, right? Both of these will resolve the situation of ego. Okay, if you say don't flip your soul face the right direction, and you so stubborn, you're so gung-ho on the ego uh, flow, you're gonna get to the point where none of your pacification or status, just basically the end of the road. You're gonna meet the end of the road. And when you do that, then consciousness as a system is not really asking the questions and asking like, hey, so maybe you want to be you turn around now, huh? It's not doing that. It's just basically uh, creating such an angst, such a pain inside of you that you give up, not voluntarily. It's almost like you don't it doesn't give you any other choice. You can keep fighting to the end, but it's just going to steamroll you, and then that's it. And then you may wake up after that happened, and you're like, everything's clear, everything's peaceful, and that particular ego that you've been fighting to survive is gone. And that's hell. But you don't have to go to hell, but hell can also work if you don't listen to, and you don't trust the right way, don't believe in it, or whatever the reason. Hell will do the trick also. Hell is not bad place. Hell is purifying place. And in my experience, sometimes I looked at the right way because I had to look the right way, and sometimes I was kind of stubborn on few things, and I was moved towards the that state where I was like, well, and it was about my insistence in seeing only good in people. It was about that, and I would always get my ass handed to me, and I insisted that people are good, but it doesn't matter if I believe that people are good or say that people are good consciously. It is what's inside my soul, what the reality I'm creating because of these um, the film that is in my soul that projecting all of that. That's what determines it. Me saying that like, oh no, people are good, doesn't make the people good. What makes people treat me in a good way or a bad way is what I have there. And so that was one of those things that I had to face because I was obviously pushed in a corner of denying the fact that I do need courage, and I do need that kumbaya bullshit. I was kind of caught by that kumbaya bullshit, I suppose. And I realized that that's, you know Pure going with the flow leads to hell. That's was my lesson. And I went to hell, and it was a nice place. It was agonizingly painful until you can't take it, and it breaks, and it's done. Um, or you could look at it like just understand that where you place your attention is important. Sometimes you're gonna need courage. For example, like you going through life, and you have the intent to do something, and somebody's like opposing it. It's like, fuck, this is my dream, and some motherfucker says that I can't have it. Immediately, fuck you, motherfucker. You place your attention on that thing that's trying to push you away from your creation of your will, and you stay there, and don't give up. And if you do that, you're not going to be pushed to hell. Don't let anybody dominate you. Don't let anybody tempt you. And you're not going to even need to go to hell. In other words, what I'm saying, if you know how to play the game of life, you will not end up in the situations where you have almost no choice but, I don't know. It just seems to me that it's not needed. It's really not needed. It's like right now, the way I see everything and the way I live my life, that like if I make sure that I defend my golden throne, everything is gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. Every little bit that comes in that feels like pain, I can alchemize into bliss. Everything that comes in as pressure, I can alchemize into peace, and so the same thing for that poison feeling and that confusion feeling. Okay. Anyway, guys, that will be it for today. Hopefully, it makes sense. And enjoy the game of life. Peace. See you next time.